lasted 17 years. Earth versus the Zelenos Collective, a federation of 6 alien species bent on total subjugation. The Zelenos had superior numbers, superior technology, superior everything. By all conventional metrics, humanity should have surrendered within months. Instead, they fought. Commander Elena Vasquez became the face of that fight. The woman who orchestrated human resistance across
We must act
47
now.
star systems.
The threat is imminent,
The
and our
strategist who
alliance
turned
is the only way
impossible odds
forward.
into tactical stalemates. The leader who inspired billions to keep fighting when surrender would have been merciful. When the Zelenos
This is our
finally captured
moment.
her, they
We
didn't
cannot
execute
falter
her
now.
immediately. They wanted to put her on trial, to demonstrate to the galaxy that human barbarism needed to be purged from civilization. They would make an example of Elena Vasquez. The trial was broadcast across 10,000 worlds. The prosecution
situation
presented
is
evidence
critical.
meticulously.
We must act now.
Strategic bombing campaigns that had killed 7 million Zelenos civilians. Biological weapons deployed in 3 star systems. Scorched earth tactics that destroyed infrastructure and murdered non-combatants. The Zelenos judicial system presented crime after crime, each one documented, each one irrefutable. Elena sat in the restraint field, hands crossed, completely calm. The prosecution's final argument was devastating. This human systematically violated every principle of Galactic Warfare Convention. She targeted civilian populations. She deployed prohibited weapons. She committed atrocities that would warrant execution under any standard of justice. Commander Vasquez is a war criminal of the highest order. The judge, a being of pure energy from the ethereal collective, prepared to deliver the sentence. Elena had been given the opportunity to speak in her defense. Every legal system in the galaxy afforded that right, even to war criminals. Elena stood, the restraint field deactivated. "I was a war criminal," she began, her voice steady. "Let me tell you what that means. It means I made choices that cost lives. It means civilians died because of my orders. And you want to know something? I would do it all again." The courtroom erupted. The judge demanded silence. "You look at my strategic record and see violations of Warfare Convention," Elena continued. "But let me tell you what you actually see. Survival. When you outnumber us 30 to 1, there is no clean warfare. When you have superior technology, there is no honorable combat. When you are fighting for the existence of your entire species, the conventions of galactic law become luxuries you cannot afford." She paused, letting the words settle. "You say I targeted civilian populations. That's true, I did. Because the Zelenos don't distinguish between soldiers and civilians. Your entire society is mobilized for war. You say I deployed biological weapons. That's true, I did. Because conventional weapons were killing my people faster than I could replace them. You say I committed atrocities. Yes, I did." Elena looked directly at the judge. "But here's what you should really be asking. If I were truly the war criminal you claim, why is your collective still intact? Why are your homeworlds not glassed? Why are your civilian populations still alive?" The courtroom fell silent. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper that carried through the chamber. "If I were the monster you're describing, I had the capability to be far worse. I had access to weapons that could have murdered billions. I had the authority to deploy them. I had the justification, self-defense against an existential threat." She stood taller. "But I didn't. You know why? Because humans understand something your collective never learned. There's a difference between a soldier and a monster. A soldier fights to survive. A monster fights for domination." Elena began walking toward the prosecution's table. Security moved to restrain her, but the judge held up a hand. "Every order I gave killed people," Elena said. "That's the reality of warfare. But every order I gave had one purpose: to preserve human life. When I bombed your civilian centers, I gave advance warning, evacuation orders, time to flee. You call that a war crime. I call it restraint. If I were truly a war criminal, those facilities would have been destroyed without warning. Millions would have died, but they didn't because I chose to be a soldier, not a murderer." She looked at the millions watching across the galaxy. "The Zelenos invaded our world unprovoked. They killed 15 billion humans in the first year. They enslaved survivors. They violated every principle of galactic law. But they're not on trial. Why? Because they won the military
The data
advantage."
confirms our projections.
Elena's
We
final
must act with
statement was
unity
ice
and
cold.
precision.
"You're prosecuting me for fighting back. You're calling me a war criminal for choosing human survival over galactic convention. And Yes, by your standards I am. I violated your rules. I ignored your laws. I committed acts that your civilization considers atrocities. She paused at the edge of the restraint field. But understand this, if I had fought by your rules, humanity would be extinct. Every man, woman, and researcher would be gone. The fact that we're still here, that we survived, that we're sitting across from you at a negotiation table instead of being wiped from existence, that's the difference between a war criminal and a soldier. The courtroom was absolutely silent. The judge finally spoke. Do you have anything else to say? Elena smiled grimly. Just this. If I were the war criminal you claim, you'd already be dead. Your homeworlds would be ashes. Your people would be slaves. Instead, we're here, having a trial about international law. That's not the behavior of a war criminal. That's the behavior of someone who chose to remain human. The verdict came 3 hours later. Acquittal on all charges. Not because Elena's actions were legal, but because the judge and the watching galaxy finally understood the truth. When fighting for survival against an existential threat, the only war crime is losing. Elena Vasquez walked free, and humanity learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't won on the battlefield. It's won in the courtroom, where your enemies finally understand that you never wanted to be a monster. You just refused to be erased.
Kindly like and subscribe channel. Thank you.